what we're doing, you have to be in the Midwest.
You know, you could have been anywhere in the Midwest. Why Northeast Indiana?
It's got all the ingredients. We have the skill set, we have the workforce, we have the manufacturing. Once the Midwest engages with something, they're behind it. It's like a locomotive that can't be stopped.
When it comes down to EV and electric in general, what is the misconception out there?
Playing around, everyone say we need to go electric because that's the future. That's a misconception. You only get the most of the benefit of new technology if you rethink and redraw the machine from ground up.
Here's the taboo question. How much of this is politics?
You're listening to the NEI Pioneer Podcast. This podcast is all about sharing the authentic stories of the people in our region. Today, we welcome two guests who are the co-founders of HeavyTech, Mike and Davide. HeavyTech is a company that is based in our region that is reshaping the future of manufacturing and construction machinery. Their focus is innovating through the use of electric technologies. Both Mike and Davide bring a high level of expertise and experience to the industry. And Jonathan dives deep into hot-button topics surrounding their work in the electric vehicle manufacturing space. If you would like to learn more about HeavyTech, be sure to check out the links in our description. But for now, let's jump into today's episode.
Guys, I'm so happy to have you here, Mike and Davide. Welcome, you guys. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to this because I got to tell you, you are like the electric king. And so I've known you now, Mike, for what, maybe a year and a half?
Yeah, don't know. It's been almost 2.5, maybe 2.5 years. Yeah.
But just a fascinating guy. So what I wanted to do is just start with your backgrounds, if it's cool. If you guys just each want to tell me about yourselves, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Mike Terzo, and right now I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called HeavyTech. This is a startup. This is probably my 5th or 6th startup. So I've mechanical engineer by trade from Montana. Via California for the last about 12, 13 years, running another startup. So my whole background is the whole 0 to 1 world, just figuring out what industries need and trying to develop the products that, anticipating those products. So my background is all in startups. So went to school in Montana at Montana State University, mechanical engineering. Got licensed as a licensed engineer. I actually did a lot of civil engineering work too. In Montana, you sort of do whatever you can to make a living.
There's a lot of that going around right now.
Oh yeah, and in Montana, unfortunately, it's a beautiful state, but you can't eat the view. So you figure out what do you do. There's not there's not a lot of manufacturing. There's not a lot of engineering. So you sort of end up being an engineer, a multifaceted engineer. So that's my whole background, at a high level, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming us. So my name is Davide Silvio. I'm Italian. I'm co-founder and CEO of HeavyTech. I have also an mechanical engineering background. I studied in Italy, of course, and then I spent 20 plus years of my career in the capital goods industry, powertrain, industrial vehicles, off-highway, a lot of off-highway, both in the powertrain and the vehicle side. I'm a mechanical engineer, but actually probably never did the engineer itself per se. I always been in sales and business development, either trying to open new markets, push new products, for companies, for big corporations like Liebherr, like CNH Industrial, Iveco Group, FPT Industrial. They always ask me to do something that nobody else want to do. Hey, let's go open and redo the American market. Let's go try to catch up with the German customer we forgot we had. Let's try to open the new electrification. That's what I...
Because you do have an accent. You said you're from Milwaukee?
No.
No. So how did you guys meet? How did you guys get together?
So I had always a path to travel wherever I wanted to travel for the company. So we met at a conference in Chicago.
Yeah, I think it was the Diesel Power Progress.
Yeah.
Which is weird because your background is the diesel engine powertrain. My background is like electrification. But this summit was almost more talking about electrification than diesel.
Yeah.
And that was really, at the height of the EV craze, I would say. So, yeah, we met there.
So Mike was a speaker, and I heard his speech and say, I need to meet this guy.
And you liked him anyway?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Today's theme is just going to be insulting.
I love it. I love it.
No. Okay, so let's talk about HeavyTech. So, and then I want to get into some European and some competitive stuff, and I also want to talk about hydrogen a little, which I know is a hot button for you.
I love it.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to get beaten up before this show is over. But let's talk about HeavyTech. What is the goal? Are you technically in business right now, or is this all still the pre-setup phase? Or
yeah, I mean, with the startup, it's interesting because you sort of just got to define what stage you're in until you get into more defined. But even then, the whole startup world, the 0 to 1 is whatever you want to call it, because HeavyTech actually has been bubbling in the background for maybe almost 20 years, especially my brain of looking at the industry and saying what could you do with electrification technology on the design of off-highway equipment, excavators and skid steers and everything in the off-highway industry. So it's,
you want to focus exclusively on off-highway.
Yeah. So I think our powertrain is definitely going to be optimized for the off-highway industry because getting into the technical weeds, off-highway equipment relies heavily on hydraulics, on fluid power. And that's where we really gain huge advantages for efficiencies and cost reduction. I think it's where we get the most bang for the buck when we electrify something, is when you focus on electrifying the hydraulics. Off-highway is, most of the machinery is actually 100% hydraulics. Versus if you look at, a lot of my background with my last startup and my last company we were...
By the way, what was the company that you last sold out of? That was out of Los Angeles, wasn't it?
No, we were out of Sacramento, California.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was Terzo Power Systems.
Yeah.
And that actually was just my background, and I go into some of my technical background was... as an applications engineer for a fluid power distributor. So my job was to go out and help the salespeople work with customers and look at their hydraulic systems, and then I would go back and design the hydraulic systems, and then I would help them sell the components, sell the systems. And that was where I really cut my teeth in fluid power, because I was out there, we'd get to go out to SpaceX and
because you were working with Elon Musk for a while.
I met Elon Musk.
Okay.
He definitely, I met him. I doubt he remembers us because we were, there were some good stories there.
No, he called this morning. He remembers.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, SpaceX back then, it was amazing because we're watching in real time because we're going in there supporting.
What year is this, by the way?
Oh man, this was
16?
No, this was earlier. I want to say this was 2010, 11.
Well, so you sold.
Yeah, we were selling hydraulics to SpaceX.
Okay.
I went into almost every manufacturer in the Western United States. So I'd go into some facility and you look at some new or old hydraulic system or some new piece of equipment or something. And then, I would figure out, okay, what do we use in our toolkit? We were a Parker distributor. So you try to use Parker components. They're a huge fluid power, supplier. Sometimes we couldn't. We used other stuff, and I would just put all these pieces together, design the system, and then we had a manufacturing facility in Portland. They would build what we call HPUs, hydraulic power units, and then we sold HPUs to SpaceX. We sold control systems. We sold or just maybe pumps or valves, whatever. So. That was fun. That's really, I think, I guess back to your original question of my previous company, Terzo Power Systems, all of that led me to say there is a real issue with how we design hydraulics.
Yeah.
Even though they've been designed since the dawn of time,
Right.
But now we have newer technologies. We have more processing power. We have the ability to have, low inertia permanent magnet motors. So I was just out there always looking at these systems like, man, we can do this way better. We can do this way better. But the big guys, they're not launching new products into the fluid power industry because it works. Right.
Then, so how does that work? So you didn't create the pencil, but you sharpened it.
Yeah. So I took it's funny because what I did is just say, hey, we can take a lot of these different technologies that sort of exist, and I can fully integrate it. And by integrating means you really have to make everything work together. So you have to be super multidisciplinary because you have to understand firmware, software, hardware, manufacturing, casting, motor design, and then add on top of hydraulics, how you're controlling the fluid power. So what we made was called the HydroPulse Smart Pump, which was just a compact.
It's the HydroPulse
HydroPulse,
Smart Pump.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Say that fast.
yeah, I'm an engineer, so when I name products or name, we're not very innovative.
I'm in marketing.
Yeah,
this is what I do.
Engineers are probably the worst marketers. We don't even know how to market ourselves.
Absolutely. No, the only industry worst is dentistry. Okay, so is the plan with you guys, was the plan the whole time to go international, or did that have nothing to do with this initially? And I guess that's just because.
Yes, because the improvement of the technology that we are doing at HeavyTech, that's actually a leap for the entire industry, the global industry. So it's not only for US. So I was always impressed by Mike's approach on real improvement, and not on maybe, I don't know, politics on we go green because we need to go green. But that's the point, is that how can we do a system, a machine better? And I'm telling you, so the first big hype and wave of electrification on cars actually didn't stick in the off-highway industry. So off-highway industry is actually doing pretty much the same technology since 50 years. Yeah. And they did not innovate really much. Yeah, a little bit of electronic, but just not the system. So the hydraulic systems, so an engine attached to the tubes with oil and pumps, and then the shower, it's the same forever. And that amazed me, because that's how can we actually improve and do better machines, better for the operator and better in terms of money, total cost of ownership, they call it. And that's the way. Everybody says that. But nobody's doing that. That's interesting.
Well,
right?
see, that's what I was wondering about, because if you take a look at the big guys that are out there doing things like this, is it that they've built the train and the tracks and they can't turn it around to improve or put the money towards R&D, or what? You would think that they would have a big leg up, no?
Oh yeah, they obviously have the resources, so they but they also have a motivation to not take any risk.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to build a track, you have to get that train onto the other track. That's risk.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And I think
with little reward too.
It could be potentially big reward, but you don't know.
No.
So they, which like most industries, they allow startups to take the risk to flesh out the ideas, the business models, the technology. So it's interesting. But our industry, we're pretty risk adverse.
So if you sell a 250 grand excavator and it works and you make money, why should you scrap it and start from zero to sell another 250 grand excavator? So the board of every company is going to ask you, are we selling more excavators? Well, who knows?
Right.
Are we going to make more money? Maybe in the long term, but we don't know. Are we going to have more customers? No. So who's going to benefit? The end customer.
Okay.
I'm not giving you the money. Let's keep it with the old excavator.
Yeah.
I got to say, how the heck does a guy like you and a guy like you end up in Fort Wayne, Indiana today?
It's interesting. I have no idea how I ended up here. I blinked and
that's the show. Thanks for coming, guys.
We're done.
No, but right, because I think people would expect this out of California. I don't think people would expect this out of Indiana.
Well, the beauty of what we're doing is it combines. You have to manufacture stuff. So that's what I learned with my last company. Is there's a lot of tech, software stuff that benefits greatly from being in California. But at some point, you have to cut chips. You have to bend steel. You have to weld steel. In the Midwest, there's, every time I would come out to the Midwest and travel around and see more and more of the powerhouse of manufacturing, it's obvious. Because we're sort of in a bubble in the West. We think we could do everything in the West, and California thinks they can manufacture everything. It's just not true. You just don't have the infrastructure.
Well, plus I would assume the cost.
And the cost, and so. What we're doing, you have to be in the Midwest. It's sort of like when you do a tech startup, you have to be in Silicon Valley because that's where the infrastructure is. Their infrastructure is skills, money, connections, the everything that allows you to get those going. Here, you have to build it, and you have to build a prototype. And what we're actually doing, like our business model, is we're building the prototypes to really get the industry to just start thinking about what we're doing. versus.
Well, is it also trying to get them to reconsider the way they're thinking about it? Is that part of the equation?
I don't think we're expecting them yet. I think it's going to take a little while.
It feels like I hit a nerve on that one. So
No. You have to. We're very show me. You have to show. I have to touch and feel it. I have to get in the machine.
I remember one of our first conversations, which was intriguing. You were talking to me about. You said we were talking about challenges with EV in general, and basically. I remember you saying, well, the thing is they're building a car just like they would if it had a combustion engine, take that out and put in a big battery is kind of what they're doing. And that seems backwards. Like it's not evolutionized from the ground up.
Well, and it just doesn't pencil out because it ends up being too expensive. You don't get the bang for the buck. So it's sort of a non-starter. It hasn't worked.
That was clear to me also when I was working in the big corporation in electrification and internal combustion engines. So you only get the most of the benefit of new technology if you rethink and redraw the machine from ground up. I think starting from the customer and the operator needs. So what does he need, does she need in that moment for that operation? You can, if you have the freedom to start drawing that up from ground up, you can have the maximum. You can have the top of the advantage for a new technology. So just replacing the IC, someone is doing that, right?
They're doing
a battery
that,
that's 2,500 pounds, right?
Yeah, and we're not quite as weight constrained as say automotive or commercial trucking. Yeah. But if you actually look at the data, like we still can't take the weight of batteries to on most equipment to get the full duty cycle, a 1 or 2 day range. It's too heavy.
Well, so is the plan for you guys? Obviously, you're doing the off road. Is the plan to ever go the other direction for HeavyTech?
No, I don't think so. I think we're pretty laser. We're laser focused on construction, agriculture, what we call off highway. They, more in Europe, they call it industrial machinery. Yeah. And we say the mobile industry here, but that's construction, agriculture, marine, mining, oil and gas to some extent.
So there is enough space to grow. Because that could be a really technological revolution. I don't know if I'm a fan of the word revolution, but it's actually
it's a little overused. But yes,
well, I mean, you guys are a couple of engineers, so I'm not gonna try to take you guys on your playing field. You got to come over to mine. But I guess when it comes down to EV and electric in general, what is the misconception out there? And I from the U.S. and from Europe, because it seems like Europe's ahead of us.
Yeah, why don't you go from the European perspective?
So that's my personal perspective. So the misconception is that EVs, cars, for example, or EV vehicle are the one to go because it has to be like this. So that's a sort of ideological thinking that it's just laying around. Everyone say we need to go electric because that's the future. That's a misconception. Because EV vehicles, both cars, industrial vehicles, and also construction and industrial vehicles can be electric in certain application for certain usage, and it makes a lot of sense. You think about, mail delivery, road sweeping, all this kind of, the package deliveries. When you can predict a route, you know exactly when you can charge a vehicle, no surprise. That makes a lot of sense. You actually take out the local pollution. But there are applications where you need so much power that just the electricity or the battery, you either carry load or you carry the batteries. So it actually doesn't make sense. So the misconception also, and Europe had this misconception a lot, say we need to go there because we just need to go there.
Yeah.
And that hurt the industry a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely did. And the construction, you're actually building the infrastructure. There is no electricity. It's greenfields. You're out there. There's nothing to begin with. How do you charge?
Well, see, that's what I don't understand because, and again, I'm dealing with two engineers here, so it seems like we jump. My perspective, it seems like America at least jumped the gun, and we said, okay, well, we have to go that direction. We have to go electric vehicles. Okay. But if one of the things that we were talking about, Mike, was if you reverse engineer it, for example, and you don't have the infrastructure, what happens is they'll say 300 or 200 miles to the charge, right? Well, then, okay, but it's I want to turn on my air conditioning, or I want to turn on the heater. All of that is taxing a battery. So it just seems like we're not there with the battery technology yet, and correct me on that.
No, and that's just a fact. That's if you just look at the math and the physics. Yeah, and off-highway equipment, it's even worse because you don't even know what application it's going to go into. You might have a piece of equipment go, take a compact track loader, a CTL. We call it CTL. You could put a cold planer on it, and
what is it? What does CTL stand for?
A compact track loader, skid
Okay.
steer sometimes, but the CTL is with the tracks.
Okay.
But you could have say a rental company rent that out, put a cold planer on it, and you're planing down, you're milling down the asphalt continuously for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, which is a ton of power. Or that same one could be rented by, I've rented them, and I run it for 10 minutes, and then I'm doing something, and so it's even worse because the application, we have no idea.
And the machine can also be left for days or weeks in a construction site with no charging potential. So that's also a thing.
So then batteries, they don't like to be left alone. They get lonely. If you leave them alone, they
You hear
start
that? Take care of your batteries. Well, but see, that's what I don't get. It seems we always in marketing we always say ready, set, go. Okay, if we're not ready, don't go. And but did we jump the gun?
Oh yeah, we said go first.
Okay.
Absolutely, and that's created a lot of issues. The good side, so I always talk about the optimistic stuff of everything. As an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic because if you actually think about what you were trying to do, you'd just crawl up in a ball and cry.
Yeah.
So you have to be optimistic. And what's really cool about how the EV market has went is it has created all of the mature supply chain and components and technology that we have now the pieces of the recipe. We have the ingredients. We have the ingredients now to really apply it correctly. So by just saying, to Davide's point of just saying we're just going to do it, that's actually helped us in off-highway because now they did it and we have these components. Now we can apply it correctly to the application. That's what we're doing with HeavyTech.
Today, our studio is on the road because we are currently at our 2025 Pioneer Awards event. Each spring, we host an awards event to celebrate our region's pioneers. And just like our podcast, this event aims to showcase and share the authentic stories of the people in our region. This summer and fall, we're going to have open nominations for our Pioneer nominees. If you know someone who embodies the pioneer spirit and is creating positive change in the community, we would invite you to nominate them so that they can share their story. Then, just like this year, we're going to be celebrating all of the nominees at our Pioneer Awards event, which, speaking of, our 2025 Pioneer is about to be announced, so I have to go. But before I go, if you're in the Northeast Indiana region, we encourage you to check out our website at pioneerstartshere.com. That's pioneerstartshere.com. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
I got to go to hydrogen. Because, and again, what do I know? I see the pros and cons for hydrogen. I see the pros and cons. You are a believer in EV, electric, over hydrogen.
Yeah, I guess I definitely have some opinions on hydrogen, on fuel source. So
Okay.
if we're talking, there's different pieces of what we're talking about. So I talk about electrification is. It means a whole bunch of different things: battery, hybrid, fuel cell, all kinds of different powertrains and types of electrification. So not like pure EV in automotive perspective. But so on hydrogen, and talking about misconceptions is there's two components to using hydrogen is how you're going to actually combust or catalyze it to create the energy, either a fuel cell or a internal combustion hydrogen engine. And then there's storage. So there's your fuel tank.
Storage of the hydrogen.
Storage. So you have to store and get the fuel to how the conversion mechanism, which is the engine. So
not to make production of hydrogen.
well, okay, so there's 3 parts. So yeah.
Hey, you guys can correct each other. I can't correct either one of you.
So it's interesting. So when most of the discussion in the industry, when you read about something, is somebody creating a new fuel cell or a new hydrogen engine. In our industry, there's been quite a few announcements of really amazing hydrogen engine technology that gets all the press, right? We talk about that. Well, they don't talk about it. It's like, how do you store that on your vehicle? And we don't talk about it because you can't effectively store it on the vehicle. So it doesn't matter.
What, because it's going to leak?
It actually does leak. So the H2, the gas, it's the smallest molecule we know.
Okay.
And it wants to permeate through virtually every material.
Porous.
And things that you think are not porous, like you can't just put a steel tank. It goes right through the steel. So we have to store it with very specialized materials that are coating the inside of these tanks, these whatever kind of pressure vessel, and then we have to pressurize it. So if you just leave it at atmosphere, say equivalent to a diesel tank, right? You just dump some hydrogen gas in at ambient temperature. It's a gas. So what you would have in terms of energy of say we put 20 gallons of diesel into with the tank, because that's what we can physically fit on the machine. If you fill that with hydrogen gas without pressurizing it, without doing anything, you literally, I think it's about 1/40th the energy density. And I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn about actual math. I go through the calculations and all the actual
because we're
science.
engineers, right?
Because we're engineers.
Okay.
Well, it's more than just a storage.
Yeah. So even if you have that great fuel cell, even if you have that great hydrogen engine, if you can only store 1/40th of the energy, meaning the diesel engine, I could get 8 hours. What's 8 hours divided by 40? That's what you can get now. Well, that's a non-starter. That's not a product you can go sell. So what they do is like, okay, let's pressurize the fuel. So you pressurize it, you get more energy density. The problem is that it always wants to expand.
Right.
So if you just leave it there, it keeps building pressure, and then we put pressure relief valves on. And then, so if you leave your equipment for a little while and you come back the next day, you lost hydrogen. Because it just naturally expands as it heats up to ambient temperature.
Oh, okay.
Could you imagine if you sold a piece of equipment and you told the customer that, you know what, if you
your
leave
gas
that,
is going to evaporate.
It's gone. You just paid for that fuel, and then you come back a week and it's gone?
If you could make a better containment system for hydrogen, does that eliminate the problems, or are there just...
Yeah, then you would be able to apply it to quite a few applications.
Okay.
Yeah, that is.
But the technology just
unfortunately we can't bend the laws of physics.
Okay.
So,
all right. So let's talk about America, China, and Europe. Okay. And again, to the layman, it seems like everybody is outdoing America when it comes to electric right now. Is that true?
I don't think it's true. I think it's true.
Is that just a perception that we have?
It's both a perception and reality. So like everything else, it's a gray area. There's areas of electrification that we have a serious lead on, and there are areas that we're falling behind. I think we're falling behind, obviously, on a lot of the manufacturing. Actually, I don't think we even started to the race. We were already behind with our manufacturing capabilities. So electric motors, the motor technology on the manufacturing side, we are super behind. But if you look at the power electronics, the design of some of the components that go into it, we're still, I think, really strong. We're still really strong.
Well, I would assume, and again, this is a big assumption, but at least if you've got a communist government, you can force it down people's throats, right?
And that's what happened in China. They decided to go electric because they didn't have oil back in the time.
And who's going to stand in your way?
I mean, exactly. So you say we have coal, we have different source of energy. Can we have like cars run by coal stuff? No, we cannot. So we produce electricity, and we just develop the whole electric, environment and an industry environment. So they thrive. They are actually thriving. So China is far ahead of us.
Yeah, and they have a massive market, and especially they've been electrifying buses for a couple decades. Yeah. They make hundreds of thousands of electric buses a year. So no matter what, even if you don't have some of the technology skills, if you just do it enough, you're going to get good at it.
Yeah. Well, what can we steal from that? Because in my background, when it comes to marketing or advertising or whatever, second to market typically wins. just because you let the first guy make all the mistakes, right? I mean, look at Yahoo and Google. Right?
Yeah, I think that might be true in technology, but if you look at Tesla, they were first to market in some respects. Toyota was doing electrification like 20 years before with the Prius.
Yeah.
But you can say like they have a lead because they were the first mover that nobody's been able to bridge that gap. Like significant under the hood of the Cybertruck and Tesla stuff, they're still probably 10 years ahead of every other automotive maker.
Really?
Oh yeah. No, that's what's not talked about with like Tesla specifically is most of their amazing, again, we're engineers. Most of what's amazing there is the technology that's under the hood that nobody really talks about. Their thermal management system, the Cybertruck. I mean, they completely changed the entire global automotive game when they went to 48 volt, what's called PoE, power over Ethernet. First automotive vehicle that implemented not just Ethernet, but power over Ethernet and 48 volts. So they did a triple whammy where all the other legacy automakers, they've been talking about going away from 12 volts for
forever.
Longer than I've been alive, probably. Yeah. So they were just talking about it. Tesla was just like, we're not just going to go away from 28 volts. We're not just going to go to 48 volts. We're going to go to 48 volt power over Ethernet. So we don't even have a power cord. We only have 2 wires. So that alone is completely disruptive for decades to come. And the other guys, China or legacy automakers in the West, they can't keep up.
In China, so had for decades, like you said, so reverse engineering strength, being able to learn from the Western world, and you say Europe first on cars, because we've always been a little bit better than U.S. on cars technology.
That's true.
It's true. And but now,
you're having lunch with him and Stefan today.
Yeah.
He's paying, I guess.
Oh, okay.
After that comment, you're paying.
And you're outnumbered.
Yeah. And but now Chinese engineers they actually are able to innovate. That's the second generation of engineers. The first one didn't have the reference from the old ones to learn. That's a sort of transfer of competencies. Now there is a second generation of open to the world Chinese engineers. They're able to innovate. They do that. That's my take, right?
Yes and no. I would push back a little bit, but they're not. They're definitely. They might not be able to innovate, which is they're definitely innovate within a certain level. Like innovation in my mind is you're taking a serious step forward, a step level change. But when you start with a technology, there's a lot of like innovation before you get to a step change. So that's innovation, inline innovation. But then there's radical innovation. I don't think China, because how they, if you own a business in China and you innovate something and you start growing, you get to a point where the government just comes in and says, that's awesome. Now go train everybody else on what made you awesome. So why would you create new technologies if you're going to get to a point and you're just going to have to train the competition, and that stifles innovation in China.
Because feeding yourself and feeding the competition.
Yeah, and so here it's like, okay, if I'm gonna take the risk and take the, I'm gonna innovate, truly innovate, I'm going to be able to benefit from that for a long time. Can you imagine if say Steve Jobs at some point then they have to go to Android or whatever and give them everything they just created and created a market for. And here you go. Like
that's what's going on with Google right now.
Yeah, and not only like we're going to give it to you, we're going to train you how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's a system in China that just stifles innovation to some point. So they can definitely they are way. It's amazing what they can do. But I think we still have some innovative advantages.
And talking about innovation, Europe, I say that sadly, it's the last 20 years of Europe innovation is actually non-existing because I read some statistics. So in the automotive industry, the R&D percentage stayed the same as 20 years ago. So where U.S. actually moved innovation in a totally different areas, so the IT and Google and stuff and Facebook, Europe was just stuck in our usual habits, and we actually didn't innovate anything in technology. Anything, it's a strong word, but I mean innovation is barely barely existing in Europe anymore. And we were the one innovating at the most.
Well, how much of this challenge equation is infrastructure?
All right, electrification, it's a huge issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the biggest issues.
Okay.
But just and there's innovation to be had on the infrastructure side, but it's more of just a ground game. It's just brute force. You have to put in a huge amount of power lines, and it's infrastructure. Infrastructure is not innovation, because you can't innovate your way out of having to put a certain size of cable in the ground. You just got to do it, and that costs a certain amount of money.
What is the big goal? What would be the ultimate where you say HeavyTech has made it? What would you have accomplished so that that you're?
It's a good question. What's your take on that?
I'd say when the whole market, the global market, the worldwide market says, "Oh, that's the way to produce machines." So we actually. That's I think the success for HeavyTech. Say we launched the technology, and everybody's saying, "Yeah, we need to go there."
Yeah, and with my last company, Terzo Power Systems, I remember there was a conversation from a European truck manufacturer, and at the beginning, when we were trying to sell them our product, they were like, "That's cool and all. You got all these features, and there's some great stuff there, but that's sort of a want to have, right? We want to have it. It's cool." Then, I think not even a year later, they called us back and they're like, "No, this is a must-have. It's a must-have because of the things that we thought were just sort of neat features." That's when that's when I think we've really got there, is that when people see all the reasons all the powertrain technology, then they're like, "Oh, this is a must-have. It's not just another excavator or another." They're like, "Well, you got to have it because it's the fuel efficiency or the power, the productivity, whatever it is." That's in me. The engineer in me is like, "I want."
Well, okay. Let me ask it this way: how much of HeavyTech is capitalizing off of predecessors' mistakes versus invention? Is that fair?
I think it's all invention.
Really?
It's capitalizing on my personal mistakes, my learning, but almost everything we're doing, from the vehicle design, powertrain, thermal management, autonomy readiness, I think it's truly innovative. It's truly groundbreaking in our industry.
And I think probably the biggest innovation of HeavyTech, it's something that should not be an innovation, which is the design integration. So we're going to have a swap.
The design innovation?
Design integration.
Integration.
Just to have one design. So thinking about 100% of the machines as a whole from day one. What they usually do is just cherry pick different components, a cabin, a pump, an engine, and they put it together. So and that's how every company in the industry is doing. We're going to have a swappable powertrain. We're going to have batteries. We're going to have our proprietary software. But the biggest innovation is doing everything as a whole. We call it design integration.
Yeah, and it's a holistic view of the designing the whole vehicle versus, most companies, they don't have the structure to take a holistic view or a greenfield approach.
Right.
That's the beauty of it, is that every aspect of the vehicle, powertrain, firmware, software, operator interface, every aspect was rethought. And
all the advantages for the end customers will come from this approach.
Absolutely.
You're saving money on fuel, being able to customize the machine, swapping the powertrain. It's exactly so. With the end customer in mind. Designing the whole machine from scratch. That's going to be advantages.
What I think is going to turbocharge what we're doing is when an operator goes to replace a part on the vehicle, and they're used to how they've always done it. And I've done this. It's a disaster. You're trying to troubleshoot it. You're trying to find the leak, the hydraulic leak. You're trying to, and so what do you even fix first? We're shooting to have any component on the entire vehicle repairable, swappable, repairable, fixable in under 30 minutes. Like any component.
But see, isn't that one of the complaints of electric vehicles generally? Is that, okay, now you need something, whatever this widget is for this, then it's 10 times the price of what it would take on a combustion car.
Yeah, well, because
you're reverse engineering it, right?
So the challenge with automotive is that they had to reduce weight.
Yeah.
So to get even a close to realistic sellable range of the vehicle, you had to go to extreme lengths to reduce weight. What that meant was,
is it just to compensate for the battery?
Yeah, it's all battery weight.
Because the battery,
energy density and
am I
battery
making that
weight.
up? Is a battery like 2,500?
It depends on, but yeah, they're thousands of pounds in a vehicle.
Okay.
So if you can't just add that, because then you're going to get poor fuel efficiency. You're going to
right.
So
you're going to tax the battery
exactly to move the weight, right?
Right.
And in like space launches, it's like most of the energy is spent lifting the fuel. That's why we have multi-stage to orbit, is because, and it's just like the battery. It's like if you're hauling around, especially after it's mostly dead, you're hauling around no energy except it's just dead weight. So when you're down to 20%, you're almost empty. You have 1,000 pounds of just material. Versus you've already in a internal combustion and you've burned that fuel. You're actually lighter. Fuel airplanes, they get more and more efficient as they go. That's why they want to put just the right amount of fuel, and then they get more efficient as they go because they're getting lighter. So automotive, they had to go to this extreme of, and you could say, I think the gigacasting on Tesla is an amazingly innovative thing, but also when you get in a wreck, you fracture one part of that gigacasting, the entire car is toast. Sort of like when
see, that's what I was reading about too, is that's one of the problems, is that your car is totaled.
And
it wouldn't be like a regular fender bender.
No, and if you look at like back in the 60s and 70s, when they went to the unibody construction, it was great because it reduced manufacturing. Like I had a 69 Mustang. It was, I think, maybe the first year they went to the unibody on the Ford Mustang. And it was great for the manufacturers. It was horrible from the owner perspective, because if you got a dent and you actually dented the unibody, well, now you can't just unbolt something and replace it. You have to cut it out. You have to weld it. You have to straightening the frame. So we've thought about all of that in the off-highway. And because we don't have the same constraints, we get to actually say, hey, maintainability and maintenance and repairability is more important than weight reduction.
Jumping in here to shout out one of our podcast sponsors, Sweetwater. Now, just for some reference, without Sweetwater, our podcast would sound something like this. It would also look something like this. Enough of that. Sweetwater is the nation's largest destination for music gear, as well as your one-stop shop for all things podcasting. We personally worked with them to fill out the studio, and I can say from experience, they are the friendliest team to be working with. You can receive personalized gear advice as well as technical support to get your gear up and running. We honestly cannot recommend them enough. So if you're a music person, a content creator, a podcaster, etc., make sure to check them out in the description below.
All right, so you said something earlier about wanting to be in the Midwest. I guess you could have been anywhere in the Midwest. Why Northeast Indiana?
It's got all the ingredients. So we have the skill set, we have the workforce, we have the manufacturing. I think what I've seen, we have a culture here that once the Midwest sort of engages with something, and they're behind it. And then it's like a locomotive that can't be stopped. It's a little hard to get that locomotive started.
Yeah.
But once you have that energy, and that's what I see the Midwest. That's different than the West. The West is like pretty quick to pivot. They're pretty quick to lose focus. Like, hey, there's a new shiny ball over here. The Midwest, man, I mean, because it takes so much to manufacture stuff that you can't just quickly pivot. And so it has all of these amazing things. And then with modern technology, we can work with engineers in California. We're still heavily connected with California. We can get their advantages, because you can't in California. You can't just use the manufacturing advantages of the Midwest there. Versus we can use their skill sets remotely. So we have the advantage in the Midwest, and that's one of the reasons I ended up here.
So I got to ask you, Davide, when you guys first started talking, and he said he was based in Indiana. Did you know anything about Indiana?
Probably a bit.
You're still trying to learn about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Only been once at that time, probably in Indianapolis for probably a truck show. But I didn't know anything about Indiana.
Was that a surprise to you?
Yes and no. I know about the Midwest capability and sort of decline throughout the years of some production, richness. But it was no surprise to me that here you can make things. So I think that's a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And that started way before the focus on going back to manufacturing U.S. I have still a lot of friends and family saying, "Where is Indiana?" I say, Indiana.
Well, that's why our logo. That's intentional. Why our logo has the arrow, so we're going to show you we're right there. As you guys are going through this journey of hopefully rethinking electric, right? Rethinking that power source. What do you think would be the next step in this? Because obviously you've got a ton of moving parts going on right now. Like, what is the next hurdle that you have to overcome?
Our milestone is our hurdle is getting to the next milestone, which is our vehicle prototype, so we can demonstrate and prove our claims. So we're making some pretty crazy claims in the industry as far as TCO reduction, fuel efficiency, power increase. You have to you can't just take somebody else's stuff and put it together, and because then that's not what you're.
No,
so
but
we have to prove it.
Yeah, okay.
We have to prove it.
But along that vein, then how do you also protect that?
I mean, there's patents and proprietary, and a big protection of startups is you can just move fast. You can be ahead. All of the above. IP protection, patents. We're going to have patents pending. All of the above. You protect it, and then a lot of it's proprietary. You just don't share the secret sauce part of it. We talk about a lot of the cool stuff, but we don't talk about the stuff that would give other people an advantage and the ability to do what we're doing. Other than you can't hide the idea.
Yeah.
You can't hide. You can't sometimes you just naturally, but we are in a situation where a rising tide is going to lift all boats because we need not just us, but we need a lot of the big manufacturers to embrace this thought process architecture.
And I think one of the inherent protection is exactly back to the design integration. So you can maybe know a part here, a part there, but if you know, we are the only one that know the whole concept, the whole machine, and that's an inherent protection.
I've worked with retail a lot, obviously, consumer packaged goods, things like that. And, I don't know if this is common knowledge out there, but if you're Tylenol and you want to sell at Walgreens, they'll sell for 6 months, then you have to hand them the recipe, right? That's the way retail works. You didn't know that?
No.
Oh, okay. Yes, I got one in. No, but that's the way it works. So if you see Walgreens knockoff brand of Tylenol, pain reliever or whatever, that's the business model. That's why the CPG companies hate retail, because they have to give them the recipe. So I'm just wondering, isn't it similar with you guys? Once you're out there, no?
No. Oh, no.
Okay.
So there's a lot of collaboration. It's interesting because if you look at JCB, they make vehicles, but they also make engines that go in everybody else's vehicles. So there's a lot of collaboration, but it's also very siloed. Like anything that's deemed like competitive information, it is held very close.
And distributors usually are not interested to get in the recipe of the machines.
Really?
What they're looking in.
Yeah,
oh my God, I would think the opposite.
No, it's. I think it's just.
What they're looking is, sorry, Mike. So it's actually to have their fair share of the value chain. So that will be an important part. So we have a value chain that need to be properly shared across the whole distribution and service network and customers, and that will be the ideal recipe. So it's
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess one of the things that I was wondering about is with your company HeavyTech and with all these innovations that you guys are doing, did you ever think, or is this part of the consideration set to say, well, why aren't we just the power source, not the car, or whatever you're making? So a powered by approach, right?
Funny you bring that up, is because that's what I was trying to do. So
really?
After I sold my last company, I had that exact thought. It's like, I'm just going to...
Well, great minds think alike.
I know,
Mike,
absolutely. I copied. You actually gave me the idea.
Patent pending, Sackett Industries. No.
But no,
Wouldn't that be an easier route to go?
So you would think. So, and I thought, and
Okay.
you would absolutely knee jerk to that thought process because it seems like it would be a lot easier to develop the powertrain and say, hey, Mr. OEM, like utilize this. What I realized was the reality was completely different because I spent the last 3 years before we really launched HeavyTech late last year developing the powertrain, a lot of the technology on the powertrain, the thermal management system, and I talked to all the OEMs, and there was a lot of like, that's cool. But if you could do that, if that's real, why isn't XYZ doing it? You always hear that, right?
Exactly.
Why isn't whoever's doing it? And it was almost like across the board, I got the same response from the established, companies. It seems really cool, but we're not going to take a risk. We're even to the point where,
to your point earlier,
where I started thinking is like, it's not that they're risk adverse. They want no risk. They want I think now
wouldn't that be nice?
It's zero. Yeah. And I think it's almost that situation where you can just plug along until there's, GM and Ford got to plug along until they couldn't ignore Tesla anymore.
Right.
And it's even worse because it's I think even harder maybe to do off highway from the outside because it seems like all these crazy pieces of equipment when it's actually we're only moving a cylinder in and out. And so yeah, that's where we started. And then I came to the conclusion that that's not going to happen. So then I started reaching out to industry contacts. That's how Davide and I started talking, the other co-founders that are involved, and we started saying like, okay, they're not taking this. They're not going for it. China's not, they don't have those constraints. So if we don't do this, I think it's going to be an existential threat to Western OEMs. I think it's that big a deal. So,
but to your original question, we already have some interest from companies, from OEMs, machineries that say, hey, now that you are starting to do machine with this new technology, wouldn't it be okay for you to sell us your powertrain? So we do expect that once we prove it works.
Oh, so it might be both.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the opportunity to partner with China? Or is that just not even a thing?
I think there's always opportunities. I think that's a carrot that's always dangled in our industry. And
well, because if you guys have the know-how, the research, and the wherewithal, then their risk is eliminated. You guys have already done the work. They can leapfrog and get further faster, I would think. Or anybody for that matter.
To Davide's earlier point, the integration, it's not something. And again, yeah, you're right. We don't have. I don't think we have a 10-year advantage, time to market advantage. I think we certainly have quite a few years because it's not easy to just integrate. It's not an easy.
It's easy to say.
It's easy to say, and you can even take what we're doing and you can go take it apart. It's not easy to replicate that. It's achievable 100%,
Okay.
So that's why it is critical that this is a collaborative thing. We want to engage as much of the industry as possible. We want to work with the other OEMs. We certainly, we're doing a different approach. We're not just saying we're just going to be this OEM and we're just going to do our thing.
But see, then here's the taboo question: how much of this is politics? Because it's not just the manufacturing, it's the distribution, it's the supply chain. How much politics gets involved in that?
To start up and actually start to be a machinery OEMs is not an easy thing. So that's a crazy process.
So maybe that's the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
So we're open on all the possibilities because we know exactly that the machine will be looking like this in 10, 15 years all across the world, and we're just giving our contribution. And how it's going to evolve, we'll see.
There's no way the industry's not going to end up with this type of powertrain. It's your benefits are just too great.
Okay.
It's just it will go from a that's nice and a want to have to a must have. It's just is it going to be Western manufacturers, Western OEMs, and obviously we're American here. I want American OEMs and American suppliers and American manufacturers to benefit the most. But we know where the technology is going. It's just that we're just gonna do it. We're just saying, hey, we're not gonna wait around. OEMs are too risk adverse. China's what really worried me and started a lot of this turbocharge was I was reading the tea leaves, seeing that China's moving faster than our industry gives them credit for on the technology, and that to me was like, if we don't do it,
it's going to get done one way.
It's going to get
another.
done,
Yeah.
and nothing here is magic. It does take a lot of like innovation and step change, and different thinking and but you can do that through brute force. I mean, if one of our big, if one of the big tier 1 suppliers says this is our top priority, they can do it in a couple of years.
Okay.
And remember, so we are shooting for the stars. I don't know if that's the correct expression. So we're saying we want to deliver a machine which is exactly from day one deliver advantages to the end customer, which is kind of out of through the roof expectation. That's what we're shooting for. And so when you deliver a machine which is maybe exactly or similar price to an existing, to the top of the market, let's say some names that everybody knows, but then you burn 50% less fuel or 100% less fuel, and then you can be more productive because you have double the power from day one. Well, that's something that's changing.
You're going to win.
I mean, come on. So
we're going to win.
To the investment point, why should not I investing in this this company?
Well,
to all those investors out there,
we're starting to Mike Terzo.
Send your checks to P.O. Box.
To Jonathan Sackett. Because our viewership runs the gamut. We have very young, we have retired. And I was curious with you two individuals in particular, because obviously you guys are both taking a big risk financially, everything to make sure that this
reputation,
is going. Reputation.
Put your reputation
on
the
for
line.
sure.
Our face.
I want to hear your thoughts on advice. Okay, because it's not easy. Obviously, you're on the West Coast. You're a successful guy. You sell your company, move to the Midwest. I mean, you got to have some grit and tenacity to pull that off. What would you tell somebody who's in college right now, maybe they're an engineer or whatever, about risk and reward?
I think my biggest thing is fear of failure. I think like stifles all innovation. It is the killer of innovation. But it's also built into humans is we don't want to fail because for a lot of reasons, a lot of psychological reasons, you have to wake up literally every morning because the morning's the worst because you question everything. When you're sitting in bed, you question everything that you're doing. And that's when it's really easy to just accept like, okay, I'm not going to take that risk because I'm going to fail. You have to fight the fear of failure I don't think there's a day that goes by that you don't wake up and be like, am I crazy? And why am I doing this? And it would be a lot easier if I didn't do this, X, Y, Z. And there was some YouTube video a long time ago that they called it the hero hour. Or the hero moment. Sorry, the hero moment. There is that moment when in the morning that you wake up and you know that you can just turn back over and go to sleep. As a startup, as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, when you get to that hero moment, you always have to choose to not roll back over and go back to sleep because that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour in the morning, that's your advantage. That is your power. And so
I like that.
That's
fight the fear of failure.
Yeah, and that's my advice to anybody is that's where the battle lies. It's not like, trying to raise money. There's a lot of hard things, but the hardest thing is that hero moment of fighting that and knowing that the next day is going to be the exact same decision that you have to fight. Because if you don't do that every single day and you don't do that consistently for year after year, you can't. I don't think you can succeed as an innovator or entrepreneur. And then even then, most of us fail.
Well,
I would compliment with that. So this is actually the methodology and the tenacity, the repeating it, which is absolutely a pillar of succeeding. And I would add as a compliment, the intuition to follow the attractions, the attractivity that you see in piece of the reality. So I'd always have a passion for engines, for travel, for US, to meet people, and that's brought me here. As I say, little things that I don't know where does it gonna bring me. I don't know what the advantage. You just follow, go for it, and then those little leads in life that actually bring you where you want to be or to succeed.
And you might fail, right?
You might fail,
but
absolutely.
Overall, you're probably going to succeed, even if you fail at what you think you wanted to succeed.
And that's
There's always
interesting
hope.
because the fear of failure, it's in business and it has to be fought, but it's also in life, and that are absolutely interconnected. And that's something that the business approach can help you in life development.
Yeah. We do have an open crowdfunding round of funding that anybody can participate in.
Yeah, how do they find you guys for that?
So they go to invest.heavytech.ai or just heavytech.ai. And they can find the link. So we're engaging the industry. So anybody, the minimum investment is $455. This is equity investment, so they actually own equity in the company. So we're trying to take a contrarian approach to how do we get to, how do we show the industry? How do we get to the milestone? And we need everybody's help. We need to engage the industry and say, we're not going to do this with, VCs aren't going to take the risk. The big OEMs, strategic arms, they're not going to take the early risk. We need everybody's help to make this work, and we've structured it so everybody can help. But so got to get my plug in.
Well, no, I think that's great. I mean, because clearly, you've got a really good reputation around here. Everybody knows Mike Terzo. I just, it's always fascinating to me to see the David against the Goliaths, and I love the Davids. I think you guys are obviously.
Thank you, by the way.
What's that?
You mean you love the Davides?
I love the Davides versus the Goliaths.
Davide versus Goliath.
I'm the marketing guy here.
Sorry.
I just have to insert an uncomfortable pause. All right. So anyway, I love it, and I think it's so cool what you're doing. And every time your name is buzzing around NEI, I'm a fan. I think everybody wants to see this happen. And I mean, forget the economy stuff, the economical stuff. Forget the global warming stuff. All that. Look, this is the way a river's going to want to flow a certain way, right?
Yep.
And I think that you guys are really capitalizing on it and spearheading it, and that's why it's fun for all of us to watch. So congratulations on all that. What we usually do at the end of the show is a rapid wrap-up, just some quick questions here. The first one I just have to ask, and I'm asking two engineers a design question, so let's keep that in mind. The Cybertruck, hideous or cool?
Yes.
Thanks again for joining us.
That's my answer. That's my equivalent of no comment.
I think it looks good in pictures. I see it up close, and I'm like, what in the...
See, I'm the opposite.
Really?
I thought the whole time I'm like, this thing looks like a disaster. And then I saw it in person. I'm like, I want one.
Well, okay, what I don't understand is, can you take the bed of the truck, can you take that lid off?
No, it's got like a retractable thing. It's sort of like a tonneau cover or bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they also have accessories to transform it, like in a camping.
Yeah,
tent
they have some cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of screwing my own rapid wrap up here.
Oh, you didn't answer the Cybertruck. Was it cool or like?
The question was for you.
Never mind. That was okay. So, favorite part for both of you. Favorite part of working in this industry.
Wow, that's because that's a real industry. That's an industry for people that actually build and transform the society, the reality. Just building or destroying, tearing down, but that's a real one. So we build machines for people that actually do something in the reality. That's the coolest thing for me.
Okay, and then so I'll stick with you on this one, Davide. Davide versus Goliath.
Yes.
Is there? I don't know how much time you've spent around here. Is there anything that you can tell us that has surprised you about Northeast Indiana? Was it what you expected to see?
The working ethic and the I don't know how to say down to the ground approach. People actually, I found a lot of similarity with northern Italy, from which I come from, It actually feels
Down to earth.
Yeah, down to
Well,
earth.
that's one of the things.
Yeah.
You know, there's a thing called a Midwest work ethic, and I grew up outside of Milwaukee, and I would tell you that Indiana is just like that. It's a work ethic of, well, let's get it done, right? And that attitude, it permeates throughout here, and that's one of the things that I've learned here. And Mike, the final question for you is your favorite family-friendly activity to do in Northeast Indiana.
Honestly, it's hang out in our backyard and watch what I didn't even realize there was fireflies before we moved here. Like, we are so boring. We like to sit in our backyard and watch the fireflies in the summer. You don't.
I was not expecting that answer.
Yeah, no, we're super boring. Because we moved here. Also, the other, the non-business part of why we moved here is just quality of life.
Yeah.
Raising our kids.
We hear that a lot here.
Raising our kids, and so that's what we like doing is raising our kids. So we actually, it's not going out, it's hanging out with our kids and my grandkids. It's awesome.
Good for you.
So
okay, I love that. Great answers and great sound bites. And I gotta, congratulations for all you guys are doing and continued success. I think this is such an unexpected thing to come out of this region that people don't see that. I think there's this Hoosiers, this Huskers, this corn, this fields, and people don't understand the high techy things that we've got going on here. Look at Warsaw. Look at all these things going on with medical technologies and stuff. So continued success. I wish for you guys, and congratulations on all that you've done so far.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.